Yeah, Rita, everything that you need to know about the story is based on the relevant timeline, which is that Democrats had some mild
Mm.
success in the off year elections about 2 weeks ago at this point in New York City, New Jersey, and Virginia. And then inexplicably, but on the other hand, I guess entirely predictably, they caved on the shutdown fight. Like they totally caved. I mean, Chuck Schumer epically capitulated there. It's the irony of all ironies. He was fighting this shutdown fight to try to forestall an AOC primary challenge in his New York Senate race in 3 years. Now the left is all angry at him. So in order to try to get the momentum back in their favor, in order to try to divert attention from the victorious Republicans and to try to bring the spotlight back to how Democrats are allegedly doing something, fill in the blank there, mysteriously these 20,000 emails magically appear. Look, Rita, my
Mm.
humble opinion is that the Epstein story ranks probably somewhere between the 40th and 50th most important story to the American people. I think the fact that Democrats are resorting to this, frankly, reeks of desperation. It's not just hypocrisy and desperation, though. It is, frankly, just astounding that anyone would take them at their word. To be clear, there were horrific, detestable, loathsome, some of the worst crimes that you can even imagine occurred in this horrific case roughly 2 decades or so, give or take. There, everyone wants justice for the victims. But it's hard to take these same Democrats seriously, Rita, when we know that there was one particular president who was much closer to Jeffrey Epstein than Donald Trump, who, by the way, kicked Jeffrey Epstein
Mm.
out of Mar-a-Lago, as White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was quick to note this past week. And that Democrat president who was very chummy with Jeffrey Epstein, the noted Democrat donor, was Bill Clinton. Huh, funny you should ask. I don't see Ro Khanna or any of these other House Democratic leaders, Hakeem Jeffries. None of them are talking about Bill Clinton's various trips on the so-called Lolita Express, Jeffrey Epstein's private plane. Why is that? I think the American people see through this, Rita. They see this as a nakedly political stunt there. Donald Trump, yes, he knew Jeffrey Epstein. Guess what? So did a lot of people. A lot of very powerful, very prominent people knew Jeffrey Epstein. The fact that he was corresponding with him, frankly, means absolutely nothing whatsoever in my judgment there. This is a pure political stunt. The American people are going to see right through it, I think.
Well, just finally on the Democrats' links with Jeffrey Epstein, the New York Post has reported that Epstein was feeding questions to Stacey Plaskett during a 2019 congressional hearing, giving her real-time help on how to damage President Donald Trump. And there are also reports that Epstein was in meetings with Obama White House counsel Catherine Rumler. Tell me about that connection. What's that about?
Well, it's actually potentially even worse than that. So there was one of the look. There are 20,000 emails, so there's a lot that comes up there. But there was actually a potentially even more interesting email than this that I saw involving Barack Obama. That's why I thought of it. And this email has to do. I'm trying to remember which election cycle it was. I think it was the 2016 election cycle. And there was an email from Epstein talking about how Barack. Now he misspelled it. There were two R's, not one. So it was misspelled in the email. But there was an email from Jeffrey Epstein talking about how
Hmm.
Barack is coming over for dinner tonight. And if you actually look on the timestamp, I think this was in late October, November. It was around the precipice of the 2016 election. If memory serves, Barack Obama was on the campaign trail campaigning for then candidate Hillary Clinton. Well, guess where he was at that time, at the same time that Jeffrey Epstein sent that email? Oh, yeah, he was in South Florida. He was campaigning in South Florida at the same time that
Oh.
Jeffrey Epstein was talking about having someone named Barack over to his house for dinner in Palm Beach. I wonder who that could be, right?
Mm.
So, I mean, Bill Clinton is one thing. We've known about these Bill Clinton ties to Jeffrey Epstein for years, but I think that the curious onlooker might, if the curious onlooker here is not hypocritical, unlike Hakeem Jeffries and Rogue Khanna, if the curious onlooker is actually intellectually honest, I think one might be inclined to ask, what did Barack Obama know? When did Barack Obama know?
Yes. Of course, it could be an entirely different Barack with two R's. So we'll wait and see. Now, Donald Trump has said he will be pursuing legal action against the BBC after they deceptively edited his January 6th speech. Trump has already secured multiple eight-figure settlements over the past year from media outlets, from ABC, American ABC, and CBS, as well as major social media platforms. Josh, X. Meta, which has Facebook and Instagram, and also YouTube. How do you see this latest clash progressing? I think the UK's defamation laws are far harsher than what's in place in the US. Could he be looking at another massive payout here?
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. The in the UK defamation law is extremely strict. Actually, Rita, I know this very much firsthand because during some of the riots in the UK just over a year ago, there was a horrific murder of young English children at a dance studio from a Rwandan, if memory serves there. And there were all these riots, then counter riots there. And I made a somewhat anodyne tweet about two-tier Keir Starmer. And a friend of mine who is a British
Mm.
lawyer over in London messaged me on WhatsApp. And he said, Josh, you probably should take that tweet down. And I was like, what are you talking about? I mean, like, this is America. I have free speech.
Mm.
And he was like, actually, under British law, that's probably defamatory. So, I didn't, for the record, I did not delete the tweet.
No.
I did not capitulate to Britain's utterly Orwellian defamation system. But to your point, yeah, defamation is a lot easier in the UK, certainly than in the United States, where we have a slightly higher threshold, especially for so-called public figures. So potentially the BBC could be in a world of hurt here. Now, having said that, there are any number of left-wing judges in the British judiciary, many of whom are probably deeply
Mm.
antagonistic to Donald Trump. Probably many of them, frankly, just utterly hate the guy. It's not that dissimilar, frankly, from a lot of our own American judges who invariably suffer in these lower court random judgeships in Hawaii and New Hampshire and whatnot there. They oftentimes suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. I presume it's probably the same across the pond over in the UK as well. So I would caution against necessarily saying that this is a slam dunk case, but given Donald Trump's track record in successfully suing for defamation and various other media outlets, as you correctly
Mm.
note, and given the fact that defamation law is such a lower bar when it comes to being the plaintiff in British law, I don't know, Rita. I happen to like his chances. I definitely would not want to be in the BBC's legal position right now. That's for sure.
Well, he's already secured these 8-figure settlements. And are the proceeds of those settlements going towards the ballroom? Is that accurate? Because this BBC one could pay for the whole thing, possibly.
Yeah, so the judgments go to different things. So one of them, I think, was the ABC settlement. Actually, is going to help construct the Trump Presidential Library. Actually, after Donald Trump's presidency, which
Oh,
is just
library.
it's just so thoroughly delectable, isn't it? That ABC, which did about as much as any other network to try to throw the 2024 election to Kamala Harris with their horrific debate performances and whatnot. There, and now they're going to subsidize the Trump Presidential Library. So on the one hand, it was that. I do think I heard that one of these judgments might be subsidizing the People's Ballroom there in the East Wing of the White House there, but it depends on the judgment. But frankly, from an American taxpayer perspective, Rita, I just love it because these media outlets are frankly the enemy of the people, and they should be made to pay as such.
I think there's not much sympathy for these media outlets at all, or the social media outlets. Now, I want to ask about this tariff revenue bonus that President Trump is committed to sending to Americans.
When I pay people $2,000 each for low and moderate income and middle income people, everybody but the rich get this. That's not made up, that's real money. That comes from other countries.
Josh, a $2,000 dividend check to be distributed from tariff revenue sometime next year, we're told, perhaps before the midterms. Do you see this happening? Because there's a lot of doubts about whether these $2,000 checks can be sent.
If I had to guess, I would guess probably not, to be honest with you. This would probably require an act of Congress. I think this would be very legally dicey to try to do via executive order. I think the even more compelling reason why I would throw some skepticism as to whether or not this will happen is because based on what the American people tell pollsters, including those off-year elections 2 weeks ago in New York City, New Jersey, and Virginia, Rita, the issues that they still care most about are pertain to inflation, cost of living, affordability, things like that. And if there's one thing that we know from Joe Biden's spending bonanza and the various checks in the mail during COVID, it's that these things over the course of a year or 2, 3 years at the most can tend to exacerbate inflationary fears. And if this administration is sympathetic to listening to the American people when it comes to their cost of living concerns this is the kind of thing that might sound good in theory. I mean, who doesn't want to receive a $2,000 check in the mail? I mean, heck, sign me up. That sounds great. But unfortunately, there is a downside to that when you look at it from a more macro extrapolated perspective there, and that is potentially exacerbating inflation. So for all these reasons, I am skeptical. But this is Donald Trump's populist mentality, right? I mean, he sees revenue coming in for the tariffs. He wants to share the wealth with the people. These are my big, beautiful tariffs. There, I want to see the people who are proud of this tariffs, but proud of rebuilding industry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I totally understand where he's coming from his mentality there. But from both a separation of powers perspective, I don't think Congress would get behind it. And then also on the inflation fears, I'm a little skeptical as well.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. I'm not doubting your judgment that perhaps this can't be done and the process it has to go through, but I reckon people would be absolutely overjoyed about getting a $2,000 check, and they're not going to worry too much about how inflationary it may be down the track. I think you are underestimating how much people love free things, and $2,000, and particularly because it's coming essentially from foreign nations. If it is actually coming from tariff revenue, the symbolism there, I think, is pretty good. Now, before you go, there's already trouble among New York City Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani's transition team, with Hassan Chaudhary, who's reportedly the political director for the transition committee. It's been revealed he's been posting hate against Jews and Israel and even questioning gay rights. Now, these social media posts are from around 10 years ago, but they're pretty ugly. He used the word Jew as a slur. He praised former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who infamously said Israel is a cancer which will be eliminated soon. I think we're seeing now this conflict coming to fruition between Mamdani's very woke supporter base and some of the Islamist supporter base.
Yeah, Rita, I mean, this has to be the least surprising political development of my entire lifetime, right? I mean, that is Zohran Mamdani, someone who struggled to condemn Hamas, someone who struggled to condemn the inherently genocidal phrase of "from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free," someone who was accusing Israel of genocide before the tanks even started rolling into Gaza, like literally on October 8th or October 9th, 2023, something absolutely crazy like that. I mean, obviously, he's going to surround himself with people who think and talk like this. This is totally unsurprising. I think the more interesting thing to me is, as the New York Post reported in the headline that we just saw, this guy was not just bashing Jews; he was also bashing gay rights. That is interesting, right? Because that is one of the major planks of the current American left when it comes to LGBT, very much including transgenderism. But this actually gets to a broader point, Rita, that I've been making for many years now, which is that this whole absurd woke intersectional identity politics coalition, this notion of a coalition of aggrieved interests, as I call it there, it's inherently self-contradictory. If you're going to have someone who is sympathetic to radical Islam and Islamism or Sharia law, you're by definition not going to have someone who is sympathetic to feminism or LGBT rights there. Think about Linda Sarsour. I mean, she was the head of the Women's March back in 2017, the very early days of Trump administration. She also was a Sharia law apologist. I mean, square that circle for me. With same thing with this guy, the Mamdani advisor. I mean, square this circle for me where you're calling yourself a quote unquote progressive champion. It literally just does not add up, and it all kind of underscores the intellectual dissonance and frankly just the intellectual vapidity and stupidity that is the modern American left.
And Linda Sarsour is on the scene. I thought she had disappeared, but it seems like she's been working behind the scenes, helping Zoran Mamdani and others get elected. So, yeah, she's still a force to be reckoned with, unfortunately, for America. Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time tonight.